This is American First Patriot Podcast. Defending freedom and liberty is our motto. I'm your host, Chauncey Brown. Welcome to the show. Today, we have U.S. congressional candidate Gregg Mele running for Congress out of New Jersey, this district. He is an attorney. He's an extremely well-educated man, and we're excited to hear his take on our U.S. Constitution and how Congress has abused it or has neglected to use it effectively to administer government to represent all the people. Let me introduce and bring into the studio Gregg Mele. How are you, sir?
All right. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Gregg. I'm doing very well. You're probably one of the most educated individuals running, probably in the history of Congress, probably. You have about 8 degrees. Do you have a PhD yet?
No, mine is a JD. That's the one doctoral, but 3 masters otherwise.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Gregg,
enough certainly to get through the day, I hope.
Oh, without question, you are a walking library in and of itself. Talk a little bit about. I'm sorry, Gregg.
I said you're too kind.
Yeah, there's a little delay when we speak, so I want to apologize for that.
Okay.
Gregg, you're running in New Jersey. You're a lawyer. You know that you're well educated. I'd like to talk about, and you're running for Congress. I know you're an American First guy. You know, you believe in the Constitution, you believe in limited government. With your educational background, let's talk about your perception, educationally and as a congressional candidate, your perception of Congress and how you have seen them misappropriate, or misinterpret the Constitution, and share those experiences with us.
Well, I mean, one of the most important provisions in the Constitution, I would say probably many agree, is the 10th Amendment. That if it doesn't have it in the Constitution, it's not for the federal government to deal with. It's really outside of their jurisdictional bounds. And so we talk about in history class and what have you, the enumerated powers. The way that that's been expanded over time since the beginning of the country is just mind-boggling. It's a very loose and liberal interpretation that led to, I mean, in some cases, some clarifications, but in other cases, certainly involvement that's really abusive by the federal government in terms of, getting into people's private lives or things like that, and regulating a lot of things that really they have no business doing that with.
How have some of the regulations that have been imposed on Congress impacted New Jersey?
I mean, one big problem in general is the taxation and to pay for the expensiveness of government. I think we've had the purse strings in Congress used to again build up a large government in terms of staff, in terms of again the invasiveness. So we've had the problem with the impact of that being really on the other side of it, all the funds that people earn that they're not able to keep, and impacting their freedom, their ability to strive for the American dream. All those things have been curtailed because there's just so much spending, and a lot of it wasteful spending, so that government positions can be can be created and basically be in a situation where it's next to impossible to be fired from a government position. And really, there's so much disconnect between different areas of the government, too, that people are duplicating work. They're not talking to each other to be more efficient in between departments. It's a systemic problem that runs through many areas of the government. And because they keep pulling all the money in through the taxation, the lack of efficiency of the government agencies has no check on them. It doesn't stop them from being inefficient and continuing to cost us more and more, to the point that it's very hard to survive for more and more people. And New Jersey is a big example of that. I mean, we have the same problems at the state level, too. So we really pay a whole lot for all the services that are supposedly provided, but they're not provided very well or very efficiently, certainly.
And there's many cases where there's a lot of duplicity in services and overlapping of services. But like you said, the big expanded government for political patronage jobs, and bigger government lends more itself to corruption, regulation, mandates, overreach, invasiveness. Things that I know that you and I are against. That is not the role of government. And we have seen the left, if you will, really, especially with the Obama administration and the FBI, and even looking at during the Trump administration, how government officials have weaponized government against political opponents, whether it be candidates or whether it be the Tea Party movement, the IRS. Now they use these government agencies against the people for their own political motive, and that's definitely a clear case of where an abuse of power is present. And yes, we do need to elect more constitutional conservatives, or people like yourself who are educated and understand the purpose of the Constitution and the limitation that is placed on government. That we can hopefully, with 2022 and 2024, bring in the reins of government a little tighter, if you will, because out of control spending on any political side is not good for the health of the country.
Yep. And we see it now also with the conflict with Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine's been the center of some real political power plays, I guess, over the last few years. But the worst thing in the world that President Biden could have done was to say that there's such a thing as a minor and therefore acceptable incursion. He said that in the beginning, and if that isn't a green light to hit the gas pedal to the floor for Putin to go in, I don't know what is. But that was because then he could have a distraction from his domestic issues with how he's killing the economy over here with inflation and cutting off the gas and energy independence too abruptly, and also create a mess that then he can try to come in at the last minute and try to claim victory for cleaning up what he created. So there's abuse of that power, and certainly, thank goodness we don't have another Afghanistan so far, at least, where we're actually putting American soldiers into Ukraine, and I suppose that's so politically distasteful that probably won't happen this time around, at least. Thank goodness. But you're stuck with all this expense of sending over the weaponry there, in large part because Biden opened the door. He showed that his weakness, and he showed that he was willing to appease instead of use the peace through strength strategy that was been successful in the past. And again, Putin took advantage of that. And the next thing on the list, if things go at least in a favorable way for it, I think China will finally move on Taiwan, thinking that the U.S. is just not able to deal with the reality of the situation they've created now with these conflicts. And on the other side of it, it's spending that didn't have to happen. if we had more strength in the Oval Office.
I still am perplexed, and maybe you can help us dissect this. I still cannot comprehend the sending of $14 billion to Ukraine. Can you help us dissect that, take that apart at all?
Well, there certainly is a humanitarian crisis in a few areas there now, and unfortunately, once the mess is there, it is hard to just stay back and not be involved in it. And this is the problem, though, is that part of the Democrat plan is always seems to be to destroy American independence and really throw away all kinds of money by creating situations where they can justify it and then justify higher taxation. In the end, the Democrats want to increase the wealth gap exponentially every day. It happens a lot in New Jersey too. When we had an estate tax before, and then that was replaced with a gas tax that disproportionately affects the poor, and it was one of the great shifts in the wealth gap to be expanded that we've ever seen. And they have no problem with that because all the Democrats are elitists and they just enjoy their position in the world, and they don't worry one bit about who they leave behind, which is many of us. So in terms of sending the money over there, it's hard to argue, okay, the Ukrainian people are suffering, however we got here, and now to leave them to starve or whatever else, it's not humane. And we're kind of sucked into the situation that way in a crisis mode instead of handling it better in the beginning like it should have been.
Agreed. We still have people trapped in Afghanistan, which that's another.
Yeah.
He's been a disaster on every front. Still stranded citizens, reporters, stuck there. And you mentioned the oil. Well, we were energy independent, and then the strike with them in 1 week, we become energy dependent. And he's begging the Middle East for oil. He said no. It is really beyond comprehension how a person has been in office for 50 years and operates in this mode. Go ahead, Craig. I know you want to chip in.
I think that was one of the clearest examples of how the Democrats in particular are so hell-bent on just leaving everyone else behind. And they really don't care about anybody. They try to say they are for the little guy. It's clearly the Republican Party, with its flaws also, but they are definitely the party of the working man at this point. And it's really a crying shame that we get someone like Biden with the Afghanistan situation you mentioned. The Taliban had the deadline there, and then Biden says, can we get an extension to get all of our people out? And they say no, and he just kind of walks away weakly and says, okay. And that's not America. But we set the terms because we're the most responsible country in this world. We're supposed to be setting the terms for stuff like that. And for him to just weakly go away like that and abandon our people, it's bad enough in my view, even if it was just the Afghanis that helped us, but it's actually American citizens too. That's unforgivable to me. And he demonstrated clearly that he's not willing to deal with the mess or get his hands dirty on something like that, where he can just go ahead and continue to live off of the living that he's made and so many other Democrats have made. Pelosi's another one. I'll just jump to that for a second because she's the one who was talking about the stock trading that, despite having insider information, that they should be able to still, the Democrats, Democrats are saying the politicians should be able to continue to trade on stocks, even though they use and quite openly and currently exempt from insider trading. information. So, I mean, I think back to, sort of a line from, I think it was Marie Antoinette, but a little updated. I feel like if people would say to Pelosi, you shouldn't be able to profit off of inside information because it's against the law for everyone but politicians. It should be against the law for them too. I feel like her answer would be, I wouldn't get out of bed in the morning just for a congressional salary, and if the peasants don't like it, let them eat ice cream, because she likes the ice cream, not the cake, in her freezer. So it's that kind of attitude that she has. That, I mean, she's not even capable of hiding that ugliness, and it's the typical Democrat, and it's amazing to me how many people still think that they are for the people when all of them show their elitist colors all the time, and they're just taking every bit of the pie that they can get away with before they get kicked out eventually. And in the case of Pelosi, I mean, and several others, it's been way too long. That's why one thing that I've talked about for at least a couple of years now on a regular basis is the term limit idea. Also, one other Republican congressional candidate in New Jersey, Billy Prempa, has got the same strategy. We've got 8 years for the president now. We want to make it 10 for the House and 12 for the Senate for absolute term limits. And I mean, he and I, as well as a few other candidates, have made the pledge that that's all we will do. And even if the rule isn't changed to make it so by then, we're going to abide by it because that's what's right. It's got to be a situation where people who've been in the government too long, really at any level, there should be a limit, and where the rotation happens, new people come in, new blood, new ideas, and that's what keeps things moving in a positive, progressive direction, actually. And I don't mean progressive in the liberal way, but in terms of progress. That's the only way to make it happen.
I could not agree more. And that would be turning government back over to the people, by the people, for the people. Because, like you so as eloquently stated, have a person like Pelosi, spent her whole life in politics, multi-millionaire, became multi-millionaire insider trading, where go to jail every year for insider trading, except for elitist politicians. And it's sad. There is two systems, two standards of law and government. Shouldn't apply to it. Go ahead, Gregg.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For her, it's just such an example, of the again, the sort of bad behavior, and it's just not understandable. I mean, I believe it was Truman, maybe, had said years ago. I could be wrong, but I think it was him that said, if you have someone, show me someone who gets rich while they're in public office, and I'll show you a crook. I mean, it's basic. That's why, I mean, I was hoping at the time more people would recognize that at least when Trump was in office, he was already wealthy and his wealth actually came down. There was no way that he was using his power to make personal, financial gain. But, the numbers just don't add up that way. And yet so many Democrats have done exactly that. And that's why they really have to be replaced. We have to get some common sense patriots. Again, the thing we mentioned at the top, the America First, candidates, the patriots. Those are the folks we need now. We need to go back to the strict constitutional construction. And I've had a few folks in various congressional districts running this year in New Jersey that we're sort of branded together as the Patriot slate. So our hope is that we get noticed in all our various districts, and that people will recognize the true patriots from the fakers or the pretenders, and again, also stop turning to the same folks that are so entrenched because of a lifetime of service. I mean, I respect everyone's service. I know it's very hard to do public service, and to even pursue it is a hurdle, but also to have that responsibility day in and day out. But regardless of what level of office you're in. I mean, I feel like, after 20 years even, I mean, it's really time to turn it over to someone else. And so, I mean, me personally, I'm dealing with, in my primary race, a couple of folks who are the rear politicians or, on the other side of it, the rhino and hiding kind of thing, because we've had a lot of statewide races lost in the Republican Party because of rhinos being put into the race. And some of them now trying to pretend to be America first, but the record is there. It's hard to deny. So, my vote is, I've got a consistent record as the Patriot candidate and perspective. I'm trying to remind people that I've been consistent and steady with that, and that this is the direction the country needs to go in to save itself at this point.
You're listening to American First Patriot Podcast, where we have U.S. congressional candidate from New Jersey's 6th District, Gregg, who is an attorney, and we're talking about the Constitution. We're talking about the overreach, power, bloated government, and the like. We're talking about corrupt politicians and how they have influenced their position to gain wealth. You're absolutely correct. We have to get back to fundamentals. If we want our country, our republic back, and we have to get back to fundamentals at all levels, even at the education level. We're not teaching our kids trades. We're not teaching our children how to survive home economics, basic things that we all, I think I might be just a couple years older than you, Gregg, but these are things that we had in school. Whether, I took cooking, we had wood shop, we had all of these things, sewing or whatever. We had these things and these experiences that, if nothing else, when we graduated high school, we could at least be independent and survive and take care of ourselves. In grammar school,
yeah, I remember too.
And, I took typing in high school, but we got to get back to basic critical race theory and all these other disaster things that do not help our children compete, survive, and thrive. We need to denounce it. I know you're against any type of oppression, critical race theory, victimization, and all this other garbage that they're trying to promote as a theory, as well as, I don't believe that any adult should be talking to kindergarten, first graders, second graders, or any children about sex. I don't think that is their place. An adult that feels comfortable talking to a stranger, a child at that age, I have some deep concerns.
Yeah.
Deep concerns.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things you constantly hear from. I mean, I'm the oldest year of Gen X, but you hear that from Gen X and some Boomers. The childhood that we had, it was priceless, and it's totally lost today. I mean, the problem is with education in general is that, to summarize a couple of the specific points you made, I mean, they're teaching the kids conclusions as if they're facts, instead of teaching the facts and encouraging them to think critically and examine from all sides and come up with their own conclusions. That's really how you learn, in the best way, so that you're the best prepared to deal with the world when you grow up. And, I see it all the time. I mean, I have dealt with my share of younger people, high schoolers, recent graduates, college students, even recent college graduates too, and I hear the same kind of thinking from them. I mean, they'll take often enough, they'll take one fact that's been taught, which is totally out of context and in a vacuum, and they will be able to just draw from that one fact a conclusion they want. So then they ignore all the other analysis that really needs to come in, and they don't, even agree to recognize that their analysis is limited and that they really haven't looked at all those angles. And if they did, they'd have a different conclusion, which maybe they don't like. I mean, it's funny that you hear, for example, in interviews that I've heard over the years from people who were in Germany during World War II. And they talked about, everything was, your parents don't know what they're doing, and you don't have, you're smarter than them, and you don't even need to go to school. You could just go out in the courtyard and play all day. It's okay because you guys are just so great. Well, the lack of pressure on the kids and push to excel and really critically think and succeed, that's what happened there. And kids were told that long enough, they were convinced that they didn't have to work hard to be productive or whatever else, or useful members of society. And we see a lot of that now. I mean, kids, like I said, they'll look at one angle out of a 10-angle problem and think that they've done hard research, and it hasn't even cracked the book open hardly compared to the kind of research you and I know to be real research. And they're left in the dust. They're not able to deal with even ordinary problems, let alone extraordinary situations. And they come back to mommy and daddy often, and they're like, okay, I need your help again. I need you to take care of this like you always have. And it's like, no, that's not what mommy and daddy are supposed to do forever. They guide you so that you start making your own decisions. And it's very sad how the kids growing up now are so dependent compared to years past. I mean,
yes.
In my time with college, I mean, there were a quarter of the people were going to college when I was graduating and getting into that stage of life. And even the college graduates, I mean, we were all expected to be ready to live on our own at 18. That's it. If you had to move out and be in an apartment, you were expected to be okay. You were expected to be able to handle it. And that was the parents' role, was to get you ready for 18, and that was it. And you weren't supposed to get anything else except for the college students' tuition. That's it. But and now the kids don't have any work experience. It's terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gregg, as I'm listening to you talk, I'm very fortunate that my parents went to college. They were educated. But as I'm listening to you talking, I'm a baby boomer.
Mm-hmm.
My mother and father says, if you want to go to college, I'm going to give you $1,000. And you're going to go to college. If you want to go, you're going to get a part-time job. You're going to work and you're going to earn it. Mm-hmm. You're right. We were, excuse the terminology, we were pushed for independence. We were, you're going to learn how to make it on your own. And that type of upbringing, my kids were brought up like that, thank God. But it's not common today. And, and even in school, we talk about the lack of ability to rational think, to really analytically think and solve problems. We're not teaching our kids critical thinking skills. That's important. If we can't think properly and solve problems, how are we going to be able to function? And, can't take these things for granted, let alone that we still have a graduate of children who can't read and write, probably the highest in the world, per capita. We look at really kids from the inner cities that graduate that can't still read and write or can't fill out a resume. I mean, basic functions that our children need to survive. We're not even preparing them from grammar school and high school for anything. Teachers are teaching to test. We're teaching stuff that has no bearing to do with how they're going to be able to, work or survive or get a job. And forget about work ethic with these young kids. Like you said, they got the me syndrome. Daddy, mommy, help me. Like, it's, and it's everybody else's fault. There's no accountability either.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
Personal responsibility. Personal responsibility is totally out the window.
Yeah, and the progressive feed into that, the left, and, I really despise the left's narrative of identity politics. It really undermines Dr. Martin Luther King's message for the prayer and hope he had that we would be judged by our content and character. And it was a hell of a slap in the face when Joe Biden, during his campaign, says, when I become president, I'm going to nominate the first black woman to the Supreme Court. If that is not racist on its face, I don't know what is. It's a clear violation of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. It violates and discriminates against all males, all women of non-color, disabled, and the like. And he gets away with it. But they call Donald Trump a racist. You know, the ability to rationally take the common sense things like this and dissect, people can't do. And it's sad. It really is sad.
And that's the thing. I mean, for the kids now that they're when they get old enough that mommy and daddy don't take care of them every day, they've been told throughout their education, once mommy and daddy are not helping you every day, depend on the government, stay dependent. And the kids are totally fine with that. I mean, it's sad because, I mean, we used to care about, like, I want to excel at something. I want to be the best. I want to, get the reward for being the best because I'm also serving other people by being the best. And, I mean, I had heard one child a couple of years ago when he was early in high school. He was like, nobody in the class, of his, in other words, cares about anybody else. And I was talking about, well, when you're part of a society, you have your role and you do for others and they do for you. And together with all of us, with all our different skills, that's how a society and an economy works and all this other stuff. He said, nobody's going to worry about anybody else. They don't care. They just want to have what they want to have for fun time, for leisure time. If they make enough money just to pay for their leisure, they're happy. I was like, well, there's more to pay for than leisure, first of all. And nobody's going to keep giving you that.
You're absolutely right, Greg. And you're reminding me when I was a child and my parents engaged in civic duties and helping those that were less fortunate. I was blessed to be able to raise and to be able to witness that we have a responsibility, that we're blessed and we're lucky. I mean, even though if we ate hot dogs and beans 2 or 3 times a week, we didn't know that we were poor per se. Just, you know what I mean? Back then, everybody was the same, person, you know what I mean? But I don't know. Like you said, that time will never come back, and it's sad. I'm very blessed and lucky to grow up in the 60s. I don't know what the answer is, and I'm not sure what the turnaround will be. But we're going to have to. It's going to have to start in the educational system, because we look at the breakdown of society, even when we look at the separation of church from the communities now, once they start accepting money, where they used to be the base of all communities, whether it's the Jewish community, the black community, the Catholic, the Italians, whatever it may be, that has broken up and eroded. And then now we have the break and the erosion of the educational system. There's no place to bring all of this together, and I'm concerned that the way the educational system's going, and because religious leaders aren't standing up against a lot of this immoral behavior or acts or indoctrination to our children, I'm concerned that the gap is going to widen.
Yeah, it's something else, because I don't know. I think once I started hearing some of the parents that would go and complain to the teachers, like, if you don't give my child an A+, I'm going to give you all kinds of problems, and complaining and yelling, and it's like, you better score my child as the best student. I mean, what kind of nerve do you have to be like that?
Wow.
It should certainly be what they earn. And the problem is those parents don't realize they're doing a tremendous disservice to their kids, because they're setting them up for a fall when reality hits, and it inevitably will. There is no way for them to go skate through their whole life, do nothing, with sincere effort, and still be rewarded as if they're the magic maker for everything they touch. It's just not real. And the problem is, the longer you hide them from that and shelter them from that reality, and then suddenly they get hit with it, the more devastating it is that they find out they've been lied to their whole lives about being better than everyone else when they're just like everybody else, just like all of us. And that's the thing. I mean, you don't get better than other people at anything unless you work harder at it and really put your effort and your mind to it and all those other things, the traditional phrases that folks like us know from when we were kids, that, you know, this is how you have to handle life in order to be successful in it and be happy. And now it's like, the kids, they can't handle anything. They really can't handle any disappointment. And the problem is they've been told they're smarter than everybody else. And they really believe it because everybody continues to tell them. And this is the thing. I mean, this is where the educational system and the Democrats have really destroyed the country, because they knew to get in early on these kids before they were older and had some more, angle of how they analyze things, to be able to see through all the nonsense that they're being told by them. And if they tell them in the beginning like that, I mean, I don't blame the kids at all, because they are taught that they are super special in every way without any work, effort. And I mean, if you're told that every day, I mean, for the most part, if you're told anything every day, as a young person, you're going to start to believe it. And this is a problem. That's not a reality that exists. You have to work hard to be the best at anything, and you have to be focused and be efficient also, not just hard but also smartly. And they're not being put to a challenge. They're not being pushed to be able to really understand what it takes to succeed or excel. And the thing is, they don't have to excel at everything they do either. But what I would say is that when somebody does work hard and winds up with a bigger reward than someone who doesn't, the one who doesn't should understand and see, yes, they outperformed me. But now it's everybody else's fault. It's, this person's privileged or whatever else. I mean, we've talked in the past about AOC. She was one of the most privileged people out there, but she went to sleep during class when they were teaching economics at her expensive school she went to, and she basically now destroys the area where her constituents are with her lack of economic knowledge. And that's because she wasn't really pushed to deal with the realities of how economics work. And now she's got a position that she's got a level of responsibility that she's not equipped to handle. And that's just one example. There are several in Congress, but she's the most vocal one probably. So the conversation seems to gravitate back to her often enough. But, I mean, it's such a clear deficit of skills for an area that is essential to be a congressperson. I mean, I've said for a long time as a general phrase, activists make terrible candidates and vice versa. And the activist can take an issue and they can scream about it and they can get noticed. They can get in front of the camera and get attention. And that's great for that issue, to promote that issue. But when you're in government as a congressperson or any other part, the Senate or the presidency for that matter, I mean, you have to have a steady hand and analytical mind, and you have to be able to look at all aspects of the situation, look at the collateral damage of going this way versus that way, and you have to make sometimes a tough call, but you have to have evaluated all those angles of it. And that's the only way to be responsible enough. And truthfully, in my mind, I mean, not everybody's qualified to be in Congress. I mean, I hope I could be fortunate enough to be there, because I've tried my whole life to build up the skills to be competent enough to do that job. But the people who are in there, a lot of them now, they're just not, like I said, equipped to do the job and the responsibility that they have inherent in that job.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, and that's why we have most of the challenges in government today. Politicians, they don't elect public servants, they don't elect people based on history of them preparing themselves for the office, but because they're likable or because they dumped a bunch of money in or whatever to move a candidate forward, and at the end of the day, it hurts the people. And Gregg, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come on America First Patriot podcast and talk about the Constitution, talk about so many different issues. please share with the listeners if they would like to donate to your campaign or volunteer or contact you. Share that information.
Sure. The best place to go is our website. It's www.mele4congress.com. There is links to donate and to volunteer, of course, and we love and appreciate that, but also to find out about our positions on the issues. We have our summary there, and there's certainly also a place where you can submit questions for more details and things like that. We answer every question, so we will be responsive. I mean, I always felt one of the requirements of good leadership is to evaluate everything you can hear from everyone and then make the tough call, but never to ignore advice. If it doesn't work in your estimation, that's the judgment call you make, but never ignore it and just knock it out of hand from consideration. So we'd love to hear from our voters and our constituents in the area, especially in our district. We want to make it a better world for everybody. So hopefully the folks in the district will, hear the message loud and clear, and they will be convinced to give us a try.
Amen. Thank you so much again, Gregg, for taking time out of your schedule. I keep you and your family in prayer, and I wish you the best of luck in the upcoming primary election.
Very much appreciated, sir. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Okay, take care. Thank you. You're listening to American First Patriot Podcast. We were honored to have in the studio today U.S. congressional candidate running Jersey District, Gregg Mele. Those who were unable to get his website, go to American First Patriot Podcast and you go to Meet Gregg Mele. The first sentence I've attached his website link to his name is highlighted. So in the description of the show, all you have to do is go to Blog Talk Radio, American First Patriot Podcast. Click on Gregg's name. We'll be able to go to his website. We're thankful that he took time out of his schedule to come on our show and talk about some of the challenges we face in America. We face with politicians and we face in government. Next Monday, we're going to be here. Monday and Wednesday, we're going to have actually a friend of Gregg on the show next Monday. We're going to have Billy Krempa running for Congress. He's an American First, who's running also as well. I believe he'll be here on Monday from 7 to 8 o'clock. We're here 7, 8 Monday and Wednesday. We want to thank all of our followers and supporters for tuning in. If you're able to donate, we'd appreciate it. PayPal me, American First Patriot Podcast, or you can cash app us at USA First Podcast. So, everyone take care. Have a great weekend. God bless you all. Be safe. And as always, keep the faith. Have a good night now.